Are you understanding?
No, say that again.
सर लाइक पहले भी मैं डीएसए कंसेप्ट्स कर रही थी, बट अभी मैं मोर प्रैक्टिकल कंसेप्ट्स पे ज्यादा फोकस कर रही हूँ। जैसे आपने बोला कि मैथ्स के कंसेप्ट्स पे थोड़ा कम फोकस करो, जैसे स्टैटिस्टिक्स, प्रोबेबिलिटी, वेक्टर, ये वो। तो अभी ना आई एम रीडिंग मोर एलएलएम्स एंड मोर ग्रेडियंट डिसेंडेंट्स, लाइक हाउ दे वर्क एंड
Okay.
अभी कुछ क्लियरली मुझे लाइक दिख नहीं रहा कि अभी नेक्स्ट क्या करना है। वी रीडिंग दिस एंड
Which goal?
लिटिल कंफ्यूज्ड।
What's the, okay, I get it. So what's the goal we're looking at? What was the kind of, yeah.
So my goal is to get into ML core and like building these agents as like the Kitabnama agent, AI agent.
You want to build AI agents, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And you're confused because you're reading some stuff, but you don't know where it's going to go.
yeah. Where this is heading, like going towards. This is a little confusing to me.
Okay.
Like I'm
So,
reading this thing next, and next hour I'm jumping into something else. Uh,
okay,
like
makes sense.
this.
So I think the issue there is that you have a goal. Um, what you don't have is like a kind of uh, comprehensive plan. And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe you're not able to see the connections between what you're doing and that goal. Right?
Cancel.
Like, oh, I'm doing three different tasks. All somewhat have to do with that goal, but none of them are actually leading to that goal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, what I would say is, yeah, try to make a plan. You know what the goal is, you know some of the pieces that you have. What you want to do is like, yeah, assemble it so that it all leads to like some kind of, you know, it all leads to the goal. Yeah. So there's a few ways we can do that. One thing is we can do it together. The other thing is I would just say like try talking to GPT and be like, hey, like this is my
I
plan.
am. I am.
Okay. So do that. If that doesn't do it for you, then maybe then let's talk in office hours and figure that out.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, but if you're going to see somewhere you have to like, let's say you had a project and you had to like, I don't know, you had to do something, you had to like, let's say you had to cook dinner for like 20 people. Right? Let's say you decide, oh, there's three things that I want to make. I want to make an appetizer, I want to make like a main course, and I want to make a dessert. Um, you won't start cooking all three at the same time, probably, right?
Yes, sir.
You will be like, okay, first let me like do the steps. Like, let's say I'm making whatever chole for lunch, so let me at least boil them, soak them, and then I can take a break. Then I can prepare, uh, whatever. Maybe if I'm making, I don't know what's the appetizer. Uh, Dhokla I really like. So let's say I'm making the dhokla, then I can make the batter. Maybe I don't add the eno or whatever, right? And then once these two are kind of okay, then I go to the dessert, right? So uh, in this kind of context, like there's a bunch of stuff underneath the hood. Okay, I mean, I don't have a perfect understanding of this either, but there's a bunch of stuff underneath the hood. So you can think about the models. You can think about like creating your own models, training your own data. Then you could think about taking existing models and tuning them. Then you could think about doing memory management on top. Then you could think about, like basically at different layers, there's different things you can think about. So I would think about, as you're making this plan, can you focus on one specific part and get some amount of competence there, right? And then see if you want to go kind of deeper or if you want to kind of continue going on that layer. So my personal, like, even as I'm in very much in the same boat as you, I'm also trying to figure this stuff out. Right now, I don't want to get into the maths, right? All that
Yes,
kind
sir.
of really under the hood stuff, that's a solved problem to a large extent, right? You don't see a lot of people today thinking about how to write operating systems and how to write like, compiler code and assembly code. Like those are kind of solved problems. You can go into that realm if there's some really special reason, and there are some people who probably still find work doing that, but most of the people are like, okay, that area is kind of done, right? So now let's move to a high level abstraction and maybe writing consumer apps and all of that stuff, right? um so similarly, I don't know, I think 7 or 10 years ago was a great time to like, and again, this is my opinion, but there was a lot of like fundamental work happening on like NLP, and a lot of like basic problems hadn't been solved. to my mind now, a lot of those are solved. And while there's still value in being able to go deep, I personally am choosing to start above the model layer. I want to play more on the memory layer. I think that's where the big issues still lie. And I'm not the world's greatest expert on this by any means. So,
Yes,
go
sir.
do your own research, find like who's learning stuff. There's a bunch of stuff going on. And actually, as you do this, what would be really useful is like compile this into a course that other people can then also use, including me. Um, okay. So yeah, talk to
Okay, sir.
GPT, see if you can get a plan, but have a written down plan of how you want to approach this. You can change it, but I think that'll just help you. It'll force you to think about how you want to kind of progress through this thing. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, come talk during office hours. If you want to talk more. Okay, guys. Morning.
Good
Um,
morning, sir.
how's it going?
So, sir, I was basically was working on that talk to me wala function. Almost done with it. I made it.
Great job.
Um, just I mean बस उसका भी रिस्पॉन्स नहीं आ रहा. वो अभी लिसन कर रहा है. अभी मैंने लामा लामा यूज किया है. 10 GB का उसका मॉडल डाउनलोड किया है. उसको रन करना है.
अच्छा लोकली रन कर रहे
हाँ, लामा का डाउनलोड कर लिया. लामा 2
हैं.
वो छोटा सा मॉडल है, लाइट वेट मॉडल है, तो उसको
Okay. Mahima, Sunil, Pooja, how's it going? Any big updates?
I was working on my project too.
Nice. Okay. Sunil, Pooja, there. Okay, one person other than Sahil volunteer to have your camera on because otherwise it's very difficult for me. Anyone else? Rashmi, Mahima, Sunil, Pooja. Anyone feeling camera ready today? If not, say something. If yes, say something.
So today I won't be able to
Okay.
open.
Okay. No problem. In the next week, can you try once?
Yeah, for sure. I was like, the light is not so good, and there's a problem. That's why.
Light is not good.
Yeah, I was actually in my village, so that's why I couldn't make it possible.
You're in your what?
I'm in village, so there's no light right now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. All right. Okay. Pooja,
Yes, sir. Hello, good evening.
to join.
Yes, sir.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Cool. All right. So, in terms of the agenda today, I thought we could talk about zone two work, which is really important and key. Uh, yeah. So we can talk about that. One thing before we do that, I just want to check in with you guys, in terms of how your notebooks are doing. Um uh, so yeah, I don't know if you guys saw yesterday's video, but basically changed the format a little bit of the notebooks. So does everyone, is it like, are people writing their notebooks or how is that going? Or do you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say notebooks? If you don't, yeah, go ahead.
Uh, Currently, I'm not writing on the notebook, only maintaining that sheet that we are updating.
Okay, so what we are doing now is we're just going to we updated the sheet a little bit. Okay. So there's this stuff, this works really well. This stuff, I've changed a little bit because I think a lot of this doesn't make sense to like do here. So if you go to this master template, uh, I've changed this a little bit. So there's a weekly summary reporting. In this, I'm only asking you to do three things. Okay. Which is, did you plan your week at the start of the week? Yes, no. How much did you enjoy it? This is a number. And deep work sessions, this is a number. Okay. All of this other stuff, which is essentially the stuff for execution, which is what you did on a day-to-day basis, what you learned, what your goals were, uh, you know, when did you get distracted, all of this stuff. This I want you to do in your notebook. Who did we do it for yesterday? Was it Sarthak? Sahil. Okay. So yeah. So these are the instructions. So this is a kind of like what the week will look like. So this is his weekly goals. This is what he did on Monday. He had one deep work session. He learned about linked lists and he did questions on linked lists. On Tuesday, he didn't do much actual kind of work. He was just in college and didn't get any deep work done. And then Wednesday, also maybe didn't get deep work done. So this will be a lot more kind of detailed. And this you can do in a Word doc. Because even actually, Pooja, I realized this when we were doing your planning, remember? It just didn't make sense to try and do that planning inside the Excel sheet. So this will be your notebook, right? And these are the instructions for that. Yeah. So this should be in the notebook template. Okay. So if this stuff isn't clear to you, then just come to office hours and we'll talk about why this is. But there are a few reasons we're doing this. And actually that'll like tie into something that we talk about right now. It'll just like make it easy for you to remember what you worked on. And you'll have a nice story to be able to tell and some documentation to go along with it. This is kind of where we'll talk about zone 2 work today, which is you'll get a really clear picture of what you're working on. It'll give you good clues about what you're enjoying and what you're not, and what you should maybe kind of focus on in the future. And then it'll allow you to like share what you're working on to help you build, kind of an audience that can either hire you or work with you or, buy your products, like all of that great stuff later on. So yeah. So if you haven't done this notebook stuff, if you're not sure what this is, take a look at this template thing, create a separate file in your work folders. Yeah. So remember we made this for you actually, and we realized these were your goals.
Yes, sir.
Remember, I think you got cut off, but yeah. So this is the kind of, really nice kind of goal thing. And then these are some tasks that you had, and then you can do like a weekly log, right? Monday you worked on whatever, how many deep work sessions you had, all of this stuff. Okay. So yeah. So that's the notebook thing. Okay. All right. Let's talk about zone 2 work. So basically, if you think about investing money, or how you use your money, right? You probably split it up into, you need some amount of money to like live, right, on a day-to-day basis. You need to pay your rent, you need to like whatever, buy food, and some basic amount of money you need. Uh, then there's some money that you don't really need to spend. Kind of, you may be like, whatever, like you go and buy a really expensive movie ticket, or I don't know, whatever your kind of like thing that you enjoy. Once in a while, you do that. You don't really need that to live, but it's nice to do that. But also, you know somewhere that you don't want to do that all the time, right? And then you can take some other portion of your money and invest it in like really long-term things that'll give you like, more return in the future. And ideally, that's something that you also want to do, though it doesn't provide you immediate feedback and no one forces you to do it, right? That you have to kind of be on your own, like, oh, I got like 1,000 rupees, I should probably save and invest 200, 300 rupees out of those. The nice thing about that money is that eventually in the long term, the hope and the outcome is that you'll get a lot of return out of it, right? maybe if you keep doing that, then eventually you have so much money lying around that you can just live off the interest, or whatever. You can, like, when you need to kind of make some big purchases, when big life stuff happens, then you have that money, right? So basically, uh, we can also think about investing time in almost exactly the ways that we think about investing money. And so there's this thing called the Eisenhower matrix, and it's the urgent important matrix. And basically, it talks about how you can kind of think about where you're spending your time, right? With money, it's fairly simple. Like, it's very clear to you kind of how your money is being spent, whether you're going to get returns or what you're getting in return for that money that you're spending on something. With time, it's a little bit less clear. So today, the thing that I want to talk about is basically like the zone 2 work, which is something that uh, it's just nice to have this vocabulary to say, oh, are you doing zone 2 work, or how much zone 2 work are you doing? And in general, it's a really good tool to be able to, like, interrogate your kind of time budget and where you're, like, spending things. Okay. So you'll find this all over the place. This is not something that I kind of invented or anything like that. But it's really key, and I think really useful. As now you guys have like a basic grounding in kind of um, you know uh, calendars and kind of making plans about how you're spending your time. It's a good thing to know at this point. So basically, there's stuff which is important, not important. So it's a 2 by 2 matrix, and then there's urgent and not urgent. Okay. So you can plot all of your activities on this 2 by 2 matrix. Does this matrix make sense? It's gonna make sense. Okay. So in the money analogy, the urgent and important stuff is the stuff that you have to do just to live. Okay. Just like you have to spend money on rent and you have to spend money on buying food and stuff. There's certain stuff that is both. Okay. So what does it mean if stuff is urgent? Sorry, what does it mean if stuff is important? It means that if you don't do this stuff, there'll be like big consequences. Okay. Uh, and so urgent means you have to do it like in a certain time frame, and not urgent means you don't have to do it in a certain time frame. So important, can you guys think of any like important and urgent things that if you don't, they're time sensitive, and if you don't do them, there'll be like big consequences? Any thoughts on what this kind of activity might be in your day or week? What's something that you have to, I'll ask you a question. What is something that today you have to do it? Any just today in your individual days, do you have like some activity that you have to do today? Yeah?
Yes, sir. For today,
Yeah.
specifically, I prepare for the exam. I've learned the 1 unit for any subject.
Great. Exams, right? If you don't prepare for them, if you don't, firstly, like, they're time bound, right? The exam is happening on this day. There is a deadline, right? So it is urgent. And if you don't do anything for exam and you fail, like, that's probably not good. Like, the consequences are fairly severe, right? So agreed. That's probably an urgent and important thing, right? Anything else? Rashmi, you have an example?
So today I have to learn more about the elements.
What elements?
Today I have to learn more about the elements.
The
Like,
element.
yeah, I understood. Yeah.
Why do you have to learn about the elements?
To get into the machine learning,
Okay.
like
If you
how
don't
to
learn
build
them
model,
today,
like
if you don't learn them today, like, are they going to be really bad consequences?
no, but it will be like delayed for
Yeah.
the next day.
Okay, cool. I think that's probably important, but I don't think it's very urgent, right? If you don't do that today, no one's going to come, like, there's not going to be huge consequences for you, right? Like, if you put it off till tomorrow, yes, in the long term, it's bad, but today, nothing's going to happen to you, right? So, some more urgent and important stuff is like deadlines, right? Any kind of like work deadlines where if you don't do this deadline, you're gonna get like fired or something. That's probably like urgent important. Eating is probably urgent important, right? If you don't eat, it's not good, and normally there's a time bound thing to it, right? When you get like, I don't know, bills that have to be paid, those are probably like urgent and important, right? uh I don't know what else. Medical emergencies, right? If you don't kind of address them immediately, there'll be bad consequences. And also, normally you can't be like, oh, I've kind of broke my foot, but it's okay, I'll go 1 week later. Like that doesn't work, right? Um, so there are abundant things that are urgent and important. These are things you'll have to do anyway. Okay, no matter what, like they're because they're important, and if you don't do them, there are consequences. Like naturally, you'll be like, oh, I have to do this. And just by the kind of nature of them, there is a timeline, there's a deadline, right? So you'll have to go and do that. Okay, so let's look at urgent and not important things. So this is stuff that if you don't do it, like nothing bad is going to happen, but you kind of have to do it in a like there's a timeline to it. Okay. Can you guys think of anything like this? Stuff that's like you have to do it right now, but if you don't do it, it doesn't really matter.
Exercise,
Exercise, okay. If you
not urgent.
okay, wait, let's put exercise here. I don't think it actually fits in this bucket. We'll talk about it in a sec. Okay, but let's talk about exercise. If you do you have to do it today? Like, is there some like external deadline or something that's like, oh, today you have to do it?
The
Rashmi,
urgent and important in that
I'm
sense.
sorry, little bit louder. Or Rashmi, if you're saying anything, you're on mute.
So somebody is coming to my home. She wants me to fill the government exam form for her. And if I don't fill the form today, then she'll disturb me tomorrow.
Fantastic. Love it. Right? Somebody's coming and they're telling you to do something. If you don't do it, doesn't really matter, but they're here right now in front of you and bothering you to do it. Right? So I would say, yeah, interruptions. I think most phone calls, right? Like the phone rings, you're doing something very important, but you're like, oh, I have to answer it right now. Right? You only have like 10 seconds to answer it. It's probably like no one important. If you don't answer it and it's really important, that person probably call you back or text you or find some other way to like get you. Right? But it's urgent because like there's a timeline to it, but it's not really important. Right? Uh, Similarly, people coming and ringing the bell. God, I hate it, man. पता नहीं कोई भी आके घंटी बजा देता है. And it's like मैं कुछ important काम कर रहा हूँ, but अब वो घंटी बज रही है तो मुझे जाना पड़ेगा देखने के लिए. Even though I know it's not important. If I don't answer the door, like they'll just go away or call me or whatever, figure something else out. Right? Um, Instagram notifications, news notifications, most of this kind of stuff, it's urgent. They're like, oh, like abhi kuch ho raha hai. But actually, if you don't see it, it's probably like nothing's gonna happen. Right? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Exercise, I would say, is probably urgent, is not urgent, right? If you don't exercise today, unless you have a trainer or something, like no one's gonna come and be like, Pooja, what the hell? Like, no one's gonna come and like, no one, you're not gonna get any big penalty for not exercising today, right? But in the long term, if you don't exercise, it's probably not a good outcome, right? So I would actually put exercise here, which is important but not urgent. Okay. And then let's look at this last sector, which is not urgent and not important. So it doesn't matter if you do it and no one's telling you to do it. Any examples of this stuff? Any examples of this stuff? So the stuff like, I don't know,
So,
scrolling.
like, I need to visit my friend's home,
Okay, visit friends, yeah, socialize maybe.
which is not that important and not that urgent.
Yeah, fair enough. Though sometimes it can be important depending on how much. Like if you've already met like 5 friends today, then meeting the sixth friend is probably like not important, not urgent. Right? If you haven't met anyone in like 6 months and you've just been sitting at home, then probably meeting that first person is really important. Right? But yeah, in general, I take your point. I would say like whatever, playing Candy Crush. I don't know what you guys play, but I don't play Candy Crush, but I play other games. But not important, not urgent. If you don't do it right now, no one's gonna like come and like there's no consequences to not playing Candy Crush or some other game, right? And you don't have to do it right now. There's no time urgency. Um, what else? Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here, right? I think everybody is like quite familiar with this box. Playing Candy Crush, Instagram most of the times. Um, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in this box, right? Okay, does that kind of make sense? Then let's talk about this. Okay, so the way that we talk about kind of labeled, we can label all of these things. So there's zone 1, which is important and urgent. There's zone 2, which is important but not urgent. Zone 3, important, not important but urgent, and zone 4, which is not important, not urgent. Okay. In the zone 2, there's other stuff. There's like planning, like all of this weekly plan that I'm just gonna Pooja, I'm just gonna, yeah. So all the planning stuff that we do isn't really like urgent, right? If you don't do your weekly planning, if you don't do the execution planning, like nothing's gonna happen. There's no like immediate deadline, but it is, I would argue, important. So in general, the issue is that this zone 2 work never gets done. This is the work that often gets left behind. All this zone 1 work, because it's urgent, you'll normally end up doing it, right? Just because there's some external kind of pressure saying, hey, you have to do this. Like, it's very unlikely that you'll miss exams. It's very unlikely that you'll miss your meals. It's unlikely that you like ignore medical emergencies. Right? Like, this stuff will normally get done. The zone 1 stuff will normally get done. Zone 2 stuff is the one that often, at our greatest expense, doesn't get done. Okay. So if you think about it like on a money matrix, this is like the stuff you need to survive. This is the stuff you need to grow. This is like pretty much useless. And this is like a tempting distraction. Okay. So in a large part, the outcomes that we end up with are decided by which of these zones we predominantly kind of play in, right? Let's say this is our thing, and we're spending like there's a very common kind of thing, which is some people spend like 90% of their time in these two zones. Okay. You guys, I don't know, haven't worked, but you, when you start kind of going into the professional place, or even like just like look at adults, maybe a little bit more than kids, some people just like to live by crisis. Okay. They just always have crisis happening, and they, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of stress. Oh, if this doesn't happen, like the world is going to explode. Then they'll do like some heroic effort and like manage to stave off that crisis, and then they'll just go to the next crisis. Okay. Like some people just get used to working this way. And those people are normally, if you look at their like activity and try to categorize it into this matrix, like most of their time will be here, right? uh, so these people, like, I don't know, I think of them as crisis managers. Okay. Then people who like spend most of their time in these two zones, these people are just like, it's very difficult, right? If you're not, at least like, if you're not checking this box and you're like playing in these two boxes, then it's a real problem. sometimes this happens where you just have like so much going on that, it's really hard for you to, you're just like, mujhe nahi karna, yeah, just run away from it, and you escape into like zone 3 and 4. Uh, and you just spend there. So these people are just like, yeah, not in a great place. Because if you're not doing the important and urgent stuff, like this stuff is going to start fall apart, right? If you don't pay your rent, you'll get evicted. If you don't eat, or if you don't take care of your medical stuff, like it'll just get worse. So people who are like really like in this phase, it's just, yeah, it's very tough for them. And it's not only people, right? All of us are like in these phases, like different amounts of time. The idea that we want to do, so you're always going to have some of this stuff, right? You're always going to have zone 1 work. Uh, the idea is how much can we reduce that, right? And how much, and basically the way to win at a lot of things is how do you maximize the amount of zone 2 work you're doing? How do you get more and more time here, right? Because there are a lot of things that will basically, you'll get like compounding returns in zone 2. Are people familiar with compounding returns? You guys know what a compounding return means?
Yes, sir.
I think what some like Einstein quote or some quote that's attributed to Einstein, which
Yes,
is,
sir. But Einstein said that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world.
yeah. Okay, so compounding is basically, I mean, Pooja, Sunil, Rashmi, familiar? Just give me a thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. Right? Okay. So the compounding returns will come from zone 2, right? All of the sharing, all of the learning that you guys are doing, uh, all of the, yeah, the systems you guys are building, all of this stuff, like all of this is zone 2, right? And so what we want to do is make sure that we're spending as much time as we can in zone 2, while making sure that the zone 1 stuff is like not kind of getting out of hand, right? So ideally, like, and then we minimize, we do this stuff to the extent that we need it. We do zone 3 and zone 4 to the extent we need it. But like, this is the kind of distribution of time we're looking for. Is something like, whatever. And here you spend 5% just because you don't want, like, life isn't meant only for work, right? And so you want to like whatever, do whatever else you want to do. But the more you can spend doing this zone 2 work, like the more things will compound, right? Because you're getting like, here you're getting like 1x return. Here you could get like 1,000x return. Right? Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so that's hopefully at this point, just the idea of what zone 2 work means is very clear, right? Zone 2 work is important but not urgent work. It's the work that will get you the kind of highest long-term returns. It's also the work that no one and nothing externally is often going to push you to do. Okay. And what we need to do is make sure or try and figure out how we can spend more and more time doing zone 2 work and reduce the amount of time we're spending in zone 1, right? Because yeah, we don't want to become crisis managers. We don't want to be people who are just like dealing with the kind of stuff that's coming. We want to create our own kind of journey, create our own space, and create our own way forward. And the only way to do that is through zone 2 work. Okay. So this big idea is like just like prioritize how we do zone 2 work and optimize for doing more and more zone 2 work. Because when you do more zone 2 work, ideally, like the amount of crisis and stuff you're getting will like reduce, right? If you're doing zone 2 work, then yeah, just the number of crises you expect to encounter will go down. And we just, yeah, get to live in this happy land where we get to do really fun work, and we get like crazy returns on all of that work. Okay, so hope, is that clear? Zone 2 work, what I mean by zone 2 work. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. So what does this mean? How does it plug into kind of everything else that we're doing, and how do we actually do this? Right. So the execution system and the weekly goals that we set, right? Ideally, the goals that we're picking there are zone 2 goals. That's pretty much it. So what do you want to do? So there's a few things you can do. One thing is you can do like an audit of like how much are you actually spending in your different zones, right? So this is an exercise I thought we could do. If you had your notebooks filled out, that would be really easy at this point. Is like just go through your notebooks and see what you've done this week, right? And then try and figure out, was it zone 1 work, zone 2 work, zone 3 work, or zone 4 work, right? And try to come up with an estimation of what your distribution is right now, right? Does that make sense? Do you guys want to try this as an exercise? So here are the
Okay,
steps
sir.
of the exercise. Like it's what, Thursday, right? So step 1 is like write down the stuff that you've done this week. Like what have you spent? Like hopefully if you've done your like calendar stuff, you'll know kind of what you've done, right? Or what you had planned to do, and you have some idea of what you've done this week. So just write down what you've done. Step 2 is figure out, how many hours you spent on each thing. Step 3, figure out which zone those things belong in. Okay. This is more, and this is also why the notebook is going to be important, because it'll give you a good sense of where you're spending your time. As you start writing down, oh, every week, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. When you do your review, you can get a sense of like, oh, am I doing zone 2 work? Am I doing zone 1 work? Or is it zone 3 or 4? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So maybe, actually, let me change this exercise. Try and think of any zone 2 work that you've done this week. Try and think of like zone 2 work that you've done this week and just like put it in the chat. Like, what have you done this week that is important but not urgent? Nobody is forcing you to do it, and you expect really long-term kind of outcomes as you do it. Rashmi, any zone 2 work you did this week? I mean, I think you did. I already know the answer for you.
Yes, sir. I'm thinking of.
Okay. Are you in hostel? It's a very interesting wall color. I've not seen. Like, did you paint that
No,
yourself?
sir, that's my room. So this time there's so much rush going into my home, so I'm always unable to open my camera.
Oh, okay. Did you paint that yourself though? That color of the wall?
Yes, sir.
The color
No,
of the wall, did
sir.
you?
No, no, no.
No? Very.
I chose that color by myself,
That's what I
not
meant.
painted.
That's what I meant. Okay. Yeah, nice. It's pretty cool.
Grapevine.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Uh, okay. So one thing I just want to talk about, and maybe Pooja, I'll use you as an example here. And this is how we can kind of incorporate this idea into our like day-to-day, week-to-week work. So these were the goals. These were the goals that Pooja had initially. So let's think about whether these are zone 1, zone 2, or zone 3 or 4 kind of goals. Okay. So be prepared for exams on March 10th. Is that zone 1, zone 2, or zone 3 or 4?
Zone 1.
Zone 1, right? Perfect. Okay. Study stuff, artificial intelligence, data science, all this stuff. Zone 1, zone 2. or some other zone?
Not urgent, but important. It's zone
Yeah,
2.
agreed. So this is zone 2, right? Cloud computing, at least 2 hours per day to each subject. This is also learning, right?
Yes, sir.
So zone 1, zone 2, or some other zone.
Zone 2.
Zone 2. Design the UI of expense management app in Flutter. Pooja, you want to tell us why you were doing this? Like, what is this app? Why are you making it? This expense manager app, what was the reason for it?
So just for the practice.
Just for practice. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So she was building a app just for practice, and she wanted to design the UI of it. Zone 1, zone 2,
Yes,
zone
sir.
3, zone 4.
Zone 3, I guess.
Yeah, zone 2 or zone 3, depending on, like practice in general is important because it's kind of learning. But also, if this wasn't like, yeah, this may or have been 2 or 3. Agreed. Yeah,
Yes.
but 3 is a good guess. Side by side work on the hospital management app. So I think she had to do a project for her college, and she partnered with some hospital who needed a website built. Right? Is that about right, Pooja?
Yes, sir. Zone 1, important as well as urgent.
Cool.
Not urgent, but yeah, zone 1.
Zone 1. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. Okay. Then we kind of did this to her goals. Okay. Uh, so again, this is zone 1. This is zone 2. This is zone 1. This is zone 2. Health and fitness, most of the stuff is zone 2, especially like unless you're like severely ill. Yeah, all of this stuff is zone 2 work. Communication is zone 2. Well-being and reflection, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, guys. Which zone is this? Sunil, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Is this zone 2, zone 1, or some other zone?
Uh, Sir, I was just I did not get the zone, sir, because the network issues. I didn't get what is the clarity about that zone 1, zone 2, zone 3.
Okay, no problem. Okay, never mind. Sahil, zone 1, zone 2. What do you think this is? Sahil there? Okay, never mind. All right, I would say this is zone 2. Right, it's important that we do this. It's not urgent. If you don't like, unless you're at a breaking point, there's not going to be an urgency about it. But in the long term, it's probably a really good thing to like think about these things. And networking is definitely probably right now for you guys zone 2. But a very, very high leverage. So essentially what you want to think about it, like how much leverage am I getting from this activity? Right? Think about it like you're spending your money, your time, like you're spending your money. Whenever you spend your money, you think about how much satisfaction or like how much utility am I going to get out of this. Think about the same thing in terms of time, which is like how much leverage am I going to get out of this, right? Is this going to be useful to me for an hour a day, or many years, or like my entire lifetime? And essentially try to like, the more you focus on stuff that has longer term, higher compounding kind of output, the better off in the long term you'll be, right? So when you're thinking of goals in your kind of weekly planning stuff, try to think of zone 2 goals, right? The urgent stuff will anyway happen. You don't have to worry, you don't have to proactively plan your zone 1 stuff, right? That'll happen. There'll be some kind of forcing function. You've all managed to live like fairly, like you're all alive and all doing like reasonably well. You know how to do zone 1 work. The zone 2 work, that's why we do planning. That's why we're trying to do this execution, this whole system. The reason we're doing that is because it's not easy or intuitive. Like if you just don't think about it, zone 2 work will not happen on its own, right? And the reason that, yeah, so the reason that we're doing all of this, like planning, weekly planning, all of these notes, all of this stuff, it's to make sure that zone 2 work happens. And that's kind of the goal here. Okay. So as you start doing your, does that make sense? Why we talked about zone 2 and how it's relevant, how it connects to like execution systems and your goal setting and your weekly goals and all of this stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Because when you talk about to people about their goals, no one's going to give you zone 3 or zone 4 activities, right? If you all go back to your goal sheets and you look at it, it's all mostly either going to be zone 1 or zone 2, right? No one says, I want to spend more time on Instagram this year, right? No one says that. No one says, I want to like go and like hang out, like whatever, answer every phone call I get. Because everybody intuitively knows that that stuff is not what's going to lead to good outcomes or great outcomes for you, right? So intrinsically, the goals that you will be setting are like zone 1, zone 2 goals. Um, but in the long term, what you want to do is like move more and more towards zone 2 goals, because that's what will really get you like zone 1 is like, oh, I have to pass my exams, I have to get some kind of job, like that stuff you absolutely have to do, right, to be able to live. But if you want like really kind of big, hugely successful careers, you'll have to do zone 2 work, right? So when you're thinking, when you're doing your weekly planning, try to think of zone 2 stuff. When you're trying to decide which tasks you want to do, like always, as far as possible, and there's a balance. Okay, and this is a concept I don't think we have time to talk about today, but it's called the PPC balance. So again, think about you have like some kind of salary, right? You need to spend some of that money to live, right? If you don't spend that money, if you don't buy food, if you don't pay your rent, like you can't live. Only you can save the stuff that's kind of on top of that, right? Even in your time, there's some amount of time you'll have to spend just to get like earn money, to kind of keep yourself sane, keep yourself healthy. Like there's some amount of stuff you'll have to like spend on stuff that isn't necessarily compounding. And so I mean, it's called, like, in that concept of things, it's called P, like production. You have to use that time to like get something that you need immediately, right? Then there's PC, which is productive, like capacity building, right? So that's more like investing your time. So there's going to be a balance between how much time you're investing and how much time you're actually just using to get stuff that you need in the short term. But in general, what you want to think about is, how do I maximize the amount of spending on your long term? Because the goal here is to have like big, hugely successful careers, right? And not only careers, but everything else that you do in life. You want like, and even if you like, like one of the reasons that I love playing instruments, or like I love things where you invest more time and you get more and more output out of it, right? For example, like I don't know, when you learn to play the guitar or something, the 10,000th hour that you play the guitar, it's so much more fun and enjoyable, and you get so much more out of it than the first hour you play, right? So you want to invest like time in things which will like give you more and more kind of joy and connection and like all of those kind of deep needs that we all have. You want to invest time in a way that gives us more and more of all that stuff. So yeah, so that's zone 2 work. So I'm like often going to ask you, like, are you like, is this zone 2 work? How much zone 2 work are you getting? Right. And even deep work, the time when you like, even the concept of deep work and the deep work module, most of the times that'll be useful for zone 2 work, because zone 1 work will anyway happen, right? There'll be some deadline and you'll have to do it and it'll work. But doing zone 2 work, which is also cognitively challenging, which is what a lot of us will have to do. We'll have to study about AI, we'll have to study programming, we'll have to like build portfolio sites, we'll have to build projects, we'll have to do networking. All of this stuff isn't easy, and it's fairly challenging. And so your brain is not going to want to do it. And so that's where deep work comes in. It allows us to like spend time doing cognitively challenging zone 2 work, because there's no other forcing function. So we just have to like get in a place where we enjoy it. And I mean, I've written this down somewhere, I can't find that, but basically all the cool stuff that's come out of humanity has come out of like zone 2 work. All the best movies, plays, all the greatest scientific discoveries, all of the great design, all of these like fancy new devices and tech we have, all of this is essentially come out of zone 2 work, right? It's just, every like this is all not necessary. Like whoever invented this could have got along without inventing any of this cool stuff, without writing symphonies, without creating albums, like all nice, awesome, creative work that we all kind of admire and that has really long-term value. It all comes out of zone 2 work. So yeah, so that's my pitch for zone 2 work. So now at least hopefully at the end of this you understand what it is, right? You understand the framework to be able to tell which one you're doing, and you understand the importance of kind of getting more zone 2 work in your day or week, and the tools to do that there. So I guess are we like, does that make sense? Do you have those three things? Understand what it is, understand, like, be able to identify whether work you're doing is zone 1, zone 2, or some other zone, and realize the importance of maybe trying to do more zone 2 work. Do those three things kind of resonate, make sense? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, the next thing is, so okay, so now what? Uh, you're already doing your weekly planning, right? In your weekly planning, try to think about, when you're thinking of your weekly goals, is it zone 2 goals like that's gonna, or zone 2 work that's gonna get you there, or zone 1 work, or like is it zone 3 or 4, right? And try to avoid the 3 or 4 as much as you can. And try to like stuff as much zone 2 as you can possibly. And eventually, like, if a good thing to also do is like figure out, oh, am I spending like all of my time in zone 1? And if you are, then maybe you need to do some zone 2 work, like shrink your zone 1 work, right? Can you avoid or proactively do that so that that zone 1 work comes down? um and yeah, start doing your notebooks. The notebooks will give you a really good sense of where you're spending your time, and that'll be kind of just another data source that you can then use to like optimize eventually. Like if you find, again, if you're spending a lot of time in zone 1 or zone 3 and not a lot in zone 2, that's not, like, time isn't on your side, right? As more time goes by, if you stick with that same kind of distribution of work, it won't lead you to really great outcomes, right? So then it might be a good time to think about, oh, how can I get more zone 2 work? And yeah. Okay. So the next two steps are like steps you're already doing, which is the deep work, which is the execution system, and the deep work system, right? Those two together will help you set up to do long-term kind of zone 2 work, and the deep work will actually help you kind of actually do it. Okay, cool. That was all I had for today. This is what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and do like cover one topic each kind of day, so there's something for you guys to like engage with and think about. Um, yeah. We'll kind of, and you guys, like, if you have ideas on what you want to talk about, if there's more engineering stuff you want to talk about, more design stuff, like, I'm just like doing general stuff that kind of I think is important, that it would be helpful for you to hear, and also that I need to write so that I'm kind of refreshed in my mind about the idea, so I can then go and write the thing. But if there's other stuff that you guys want to talk about, then let me know. But the plan is to do this so there's some kind of lecture portion every day. And yeah, make sense? Thoughts, questions? I
Yes,
don't know.
sir.
Just talk for an hour. Quite a lot. Anything? All good?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I just want to know about. Uh, I just want to tell about myself. Like this is my fifth week of internship. I mean apprenticeship.
Okay.
But still, I did not get into project work, sir. So
Man, read the WhatsApp group. I mean, all of this stuff is there. There's, I don't know what, like, the steps for getting into project work should be very clear at this point. Just
last time,
watch yesterday's video. There's a video yesterday where we talked about all this stuff. I just posted it this morning. So just, yeah, read that. Okay. Cool. Okay, tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow we'll be doing end of week kind of summarization or whatever. So that's the agenda for tomorrow, is to like, yeah, do your weekly review. Just get ready for that. And then on Saturday we're going to do that call where we just talk about how our weeks went. So that's the agenda for the rest of the week. If you have any questions, come to office hours today. And I think that's it. Yeah. All right. Thanks.